lovely to see you here. Thank you so much. Please tell me a little bit about yourself.
So, hi, my name is Gail, and I live in Phoenix, Arizona, here in the United States, in the desert. And I consider myself a life coach slash transformative coach. I enjoy helping people see things differently in their lives and watch their lives change. And I'm also a writer. I've written 3 books, very passionate about writing. I'm a blogger. I have a background in special education, besides having raised 3 kids who are all in their 30s. My brother and my son both have pretty severe, I guess you'd characterize it as autism. They're both nonverbal. I didn't really grow up very involved in my brother's life because he was born in 1960. And at that time, kids were mostly institutionalized. So my brother was. We did visit him, but I didn't really have a relationship with him till many, many years later. And then I had my son. He's 37, Kyle, and he has autism and he has a lot of other challenges that go along with that diagnosis. And he's one of those people that is not able to live independently and not really able to take care of himself. He needs help with pretty much everything. So I guess disability has been in my blood or bones since I was 16 months old in one form or another. I mean, I guess where it started was with my brother. I didn't really know what the label was for his condition till I was much older, maybe a teenager. I'm not really sure because in the 60s, everything, people didn't talk about it. Kids were sort of hidden away places. So it was kind of mysterious to me. And then when I got into college, I somehow had this interest in learning more, and I ended up becoming a special education teacher. And then my son was born in, in 1983, and it was kind of a shock, even though maybe it shouldn't have been a shock, but it was a shock. And it was very much a process with him of him starting to have seizures when he was a baby. That was the first indication we had that something was different with him. And then trying to figure out what to do and going through therapies. And then we went through a program called the Sunrise Program we were involved with for many, many years, where they kind of gave us the impression we could fix him if we just did the program this certain perfect way. And that included having a happy attitude, like almost all the time if we could, which was a lot of pressure because we don't really control that. But anyway, we did that program for a long time in our home with him. And then eventually he went off to school, and that was a letting go process for me. And then he became an adult, and that's the question of what does he do with his life because he's not really able to work. So he was in a day program. Really, up until COVID, he was in different day programs. And I mean, the journey has really been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of feeling, a lot of struggling, a lot of feeling desperate at times, a lot of pressure on myself to do more, to do the right thing, to figure it out. If I just did it this way, then everything would be okay. Um, so there have been a lot of those struggles, but there's also been a lot of beauty to it. Um, because Kyle has taught me so much, I feel, about how to be a better human being. I really, really believe that. And despite all the struggles and difficulties with him, I'm different than I ever would have been if it wasn't for him in my life. Completely different.
How do you think you're different?
Oh gosh, there's so many things. For one thing, I think it helped me be a better parent for my other kids who came afterwards. Um, I believe that it helped me see what's actually really important in life and how we get really caught up in the things that really aren't so important. And, even with the kids that came along after, just a lot of things that other parents tended to worry and fret about just didn't bother me. And I think I was much more compassionate and accepting with them because I feel like Kyle, my son, has taught me just a different level of compassion and acceptance and understanding that he's doing the best he can, and being able to see that in myself too. Um, and, seeing how difficult things are for him, yet he just seems to keep on going. He just seems to keep plugging away. And I could also just see his resilience, and just something would happen and maybe an upset, and it continues to this day. And then he's just over it, and it's done and it's gone. And I just feel like I learned a lot from that, from watching that. Um, the other thing about him is that, and I'm assuming this, but this is how it looks to me, I think he really lives in the moment way more than maybe a lot of us do. Um, that he kind of goes with the flow. I mean, things will upset him. A lot of people with autism, changes is really kind of tough for them, but he also adapts. Like, he he just moved, and it seems like within a few days it looked like he was, well, I guess this is where I live now, you know, and he seems okay with it. So his ability to just be in the moment and, yeah, just really simply be in the moment. I remember when COVID first started and he had to stop going to his day program, they closed. So we were going to parks a lot, and we would go find this one certain rock out in the desert to sit on in the park. And he loves sitting on rocks for whatever reason. And I would sit there with him, and he just seemed to be enjoying everything. My mind was going, "Wh- how long is this going to be lasting? That he can't go to his program." My mind was full. And I look over at him, and he's just enjoying. And it really helped me kind of be able to settle into that place that he was. When I think back to the beginning, where there was so much struggle and desperation, and some of it I believe is time, because we spend a lot of time worrying about the future and that's going to be like. And I remember worrying and not wanting to think about, oh, when Kyle's an adult, like that felt so scary. And there's something about him becoming an adult that was so wonderful, because there weren't any more worries about when he's going to be an adult, because I could see that everything is just fine. He's just fine. I'm just fine. And I know what to do one step at a time. I just did one thing, and then I did another. And some things I realized, oh, I don't think I want to be doing that. And some things I realized, oh, let's do more of that. It was very much a learning process. But what I can see, and what I began to see as time went on, was that I had this. I could do this. Sometimes I needed to ask for help, or I needed resources, or I needed to learn something, but that I had everything I needed. And I don't mean my degree in special education. I had just everything I needed in me to figure it out and to take all the steps. And so it's kind of almost a confidence builder when you start to notice that, like, okay, I figured that out. Okay, well, here we are. And what are we going to do about this? And you just take another step and a step and a step. And as human beings, like, we have the ability to do that. We just don't always know it. And I think that's some of the struggle in the beginning, is that we're afraid that we can't handle this. Um, but the other piece too is, I think that I don't know that you ever get to this place called acceptance. However, in the beginning, you're kind of fighting it in a way. You don't want this to be true. you don't want this to be so. You don't want this. You love your child, so there's that conflict of you love your child so much, but you don't want this to be happening to you and your child. And then I think in time, you begin to just little by little accept that this is your child. This is what's happening. Um, it doesn't affect how you feel about him. Like you just kind of come to, I feel like the word acceptance is almost like it's, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you come to a place of peace, I guess is what it is. I think that over the years for me, in the beginning, I was not in a place of feeling that peace. It was buried with a lot of other stuff over it. It was always there, I think, but it was buried. And then as he got older and as I began to walk this walk, the peace sort of just begins to emerge a little more. I mean, I don't always feel it now, but I feel it way more. I feel very settled. I mean, he's 37 years old, so I've had a while for this, but I know that I think there was a big shift as he began to become an adult that this was okay. Like I began to have more of a sense of that. And yeah, it's just a sense of peace, but it's not resignation. We still are working with him on all kinds of things to help him be the best he can be. So sometimes people get confused with that. They think if they accept or if they're at peace with their child as they are, that must mean that you never try to help them. And it doesn't mean that at all. And in fact, I think the more settled you are and the more at peace you are, the better equipped you are to help, to see what you can do, because you're not struggling so much. And the outcome, you're feeling good, is not based on what the outcome is. It's not based on whether he can do this or do that thing. They're two separate things. You can feel good anyway. And you could feel bad even if he's doing the outcome. It goes both ways. I've seen a few really key things about life that has really enabled me to have a different experience with my son. And it was actually maybe in the last 5-ish years or so when I started to understand some things a little bit differently. Um, I think I could really see that anything that was going on with him, some of his struggles, he goes through some difficult periods at times, that those things weren't directly responsible for my well-being. And that was a big thing. That was a really, really big thing. And what I understood was that me experiencing my well-being, or how good I feel, whatever you want to call it, my well-being kind of goes up and down. And sometimes it seems like it goes up and down with what Kyle goes up and down with. But it's really connected to my thoughts about what's going on with Kyle. It's really my thoughts, my thinking that is making me have a certain experience. That's kind of, I see that as like the intermediary, like here's Kyle, here's me, but there's this in between thing that's actually creating my experience of Kyle, if that makes sense. So he can be having a really rough time, and I've experienced this, and I can still experience peace when my internal thing settles down, when my busy mind settles down. We all have like so many thoughts we're thinking all the time, but just below all that is some peace. And it doesn't matter what's going on with him. It might look like it does. But it took me a while to see, oh, they're kind of two separate things. And really it's all the thoughts in my mind that are actually creating my experience of Kyle. So that's one thing. The other thing that I've seen that's huge, we are all connected to a source of wisdom, and I don't mean like school learning or book learning. We're connected to something that it's almost like it's outside of us. It's like an energy, but it's also inside of us at the same time. And I don't know how to explain that part, but it's this energy. It's the energy that I was talking about before when I said there's a one step at a time. There's an energy that's going to help me know um, what what do I do next? What happens next here? And without going into a really long story, but I share this story a lot. When my son was in a serious accident and came home in a wheelchair, and he's always walked. So being in a wheelchair was new to me. And I wheeled him into the bedroom, and I thought, I have no idea what to do. I don't know how to get him out of that chair. I don't know how we're going to do all this recovery that's going to be required. Wisdom, this energy that we're connected to, um, it took me right along. It's like I got in a boat. I'm not saying it was easy. So there were some bumpy rapids, but I got in that boat in that bedroom with him in the wheelchair, and wisdom, just the energy of it just took me along for this ride of showing me, here's what to do next, here's what to do, here's what to call, who to call. Um, so just to me, seeing that and knowing that all of everybody who's connected to somebody with some sort of special need, parents or caregivers or siblings or family or whatever, we all have that. We all are connected to that energy where we can figure out what to do, or we can figure out how to respond to something, or we can figure it out. So I love that energy, thinking about that energy and remembering it's like this special lucky stone I have in my pocket. And it's always there. I might sort of forget about it, but I can always kind of reach into my pocket and it'll be there. So that's I think a big one that I've seen. And the other thing I believe that I've seen is that it's okay to have a bad experience. It's okay to have a rough day, what you would consider a rough day. It's okay to feel bad. It's okay to feel sad or anxious or whatever. And I used to put a lot of pressure on myself, a little bit because of the program I mentioned we were doing, because they said we had to have this good attitude all the time. There was a lot of pressure to force that. And it's kind of like, forcing a puzzle piece into a slot where it doesn't belong. So you can't really force yourself to have that attitude. It doesn't work that way. So I guess what I'm saying is that um, it's okay. Like it's okay to have that rough day, and I don't have to put pressure on myself to be any different than I am, because I know that that'll pass. Like probably in a few minutes or an hour, I'll feel differently.
I remember doing programs with my daughter, and I guess anything medical in that respect for even my children. So, that you feel a sense of pressure as a parent that you are doing the wrong thing if you're not, totally plugged in and, on 100% of the time. Um, and there's a lot of guilt that goes along with that. So I know a lot of people feel very guilty about their minor infractions or inability to do something exactly the way they've been told, and that obviously affects their day-to-day experience. Did you find that?
Oh, a lot in the beginning. Yeah, I had this sense that I was never doing enough. I was never spending enough time. Um, I was never following the program we were doing perfectly. I never had enough helpers. Like it was like this carrot. Like I would take some steps, but the carrot was always moving Like I never could get to the carrot that said, you're doing it perfectly. Now you'll have this perfect outcome. So yeah, there was the pressure, um, the guilt, um, and then the being really torn because we had two other kids too, and they needed me too, and I wanted to be with them too. So there was that pull, like always the pulling, I'm not doing enough for Kyle, but when I am doing more for Kyle, I'm not doing enough for my other kids. It was like a constant in the beginning time. Yeah.
How did that change for you?
I think I saw that it would never feel like I was doing enough. And so maybe it would just have to be good enough. And I don't know that that was like a one day that I came to that conclusion. I think it was sort of an evolution, but we did do a lot of things with our other kids because I didn't want to miss out on, they're only little once. And I also kind of started to see that the thing we were doing that we thought we had to be doing maybe wasn't having that much of an effect on him. Like I thought it was. I thought it was gonna just make or break, how well he does. And I almost started to see some of it maybe didn't really matter. It didn't matter if it was done a certain way because he was on a path of being how he is and who he is. And while we were able to help him progress, the basic way that how he is just was. It was just going to stay that way.
That example speaks to the two things that you were talking about before, which was our innate wisdom and also, accepting in a healthy, comfortable way, if that's the right word,
Mm-hmm.
the situation rather than struggling and fighting against it.
Mm-hmm.
What would you really like people to know who are watching this video?
I guess I'll say that for one thing, I know that you didn't get the child that you expected. Maybe you are the one that you wanted. And it's really okay. Like your child is really okay, no matter what's going on with them. And you are really okay. And you both have everything you need to navigate. Um, the wisdom we talked about, I mean, we have it, we're connected to it. But the other piece of it is our child is connected to it too. And I didn't see that until really recently, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. And I could see how Kyle is connected to wisdom in so many examples. So just to notice and be aware and see that, just consider it. Like what if? What what if your child has that wisdom? What if he's okay? She's okay. What if you're okay? No matter that your life doesn't look like your neighbors who has kids that don't have anything going on. Like it's like underneath all of it, it's just really it's okay. It's okay. You're gonna have rough days and you're gonna have great days, but it's all right. You're all right.